Good morning. Please rise. Court's in session. You may be seated.
People versus Luanna Simon, 18-2261 live, ready to continue with the preliminary exam. I want to note, correct the record, plaintiff's exhibit 27A should be considered admitted, not just allowed.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. And we're on cross-examination of our witness.
Paulette Granbury Russell.
Is here in the courtroom.
There, Granbury.
Anything else we need to deal with on the record before we start?
No, not for the people, Your Honor.
Okay. I'd like to remind you this is a probable cause hearing. I think I'm getting more information than I need, so I'm hoping we can keep things moving without dragging this into September. Come on forward, please. Continue to tell the truth and nothing but the truth under penalty of perjury.
Yes.
Thank you. So, we're on clock.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm going to start out with questions about the Office of Civil Rights, OCR, the searches.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the last.
I'm sorry, I'm going to start out with the OCR issue.
Okay.
Do you recall that in 2014 there were 55 colleges that were under investigation by OCR?
Yes.
And do you recall that the one that been in the longest was Ohio State since June of 2010?
I would not remember that, no.
Do you recall that Harvard Law School and Princeton were also under investigation since 2010?
Your Honor, I'm going to object to these questions. There's not been a foundation laid to how she could know what's going on through the Office of Civil Rights everywhere else in the country. If that foundation's there, we'd like to hear it.
Sustained.
That's what I'm asking you on. I'm asking whether she knew
Well,
those
maybe.
particular issues.
I'm not sure how that is relevant. Except-
It's relevant because on direct examination, there was great meat made out of the fact that they were investigated as if they were the only one in the world that was investigated. And it was a big deal.
Okay.
And 55 colleges, they were all investigated.
Okay. Why don't you ask her that?
Okay.
I don't think I need to know about each different school.
And as you testified, 55 colleges were under investigation in 2014, correct?
Yes.
And you knew that many colleges have been investigated for several years. Is that right?
Objection again, foundation.
That's what the question is.
If you know. Do you know that or not?
I don't know the years.
Without knowing the year, did you know that many colleges had been investigated for several years?
Yes.
Now, there was no written protocol, was there, to report Title IX investigations to the President?
No, there was not.
And copies of investigation reports were not shared with the President, were they?
To the best of my knowledge, they were not.
You didn't share them, did you?
No, I did not.
And Title IX investigations themselves are not typically reported to the President, are they?
I'm sorry, repeat the question.
I'm sorry?
Can you repeat the question? I'm having difficulty
Yes.
hearing.
I'm sorry, Title IX investigations are not typically reported to the president, are they?
The president would be aware that we had Title IX investigations, but the detail of those were not typically disclosed to the president.
Now, you recall forwarding a brief email to President Simon advising her that a complaint involving a doctor in sports medicine on May 16, 2018?
Yes.
And if you had a meeting at all, is it your memory that it probably was by phone?
To the best of my recollection, I believe that's the case. That's what I have said I remember.
Yes, and you testified to that in your interview regarding June 26, 2018, pardon me, May 16, 2018. Higher again, June 26, 2018, by the Michigan State Police, is that correct?
You'll have to ask the question again. I'm sorry, I'm confused by the...
That's the same thing you said in your interview on May 26, 2018, when you were interviewed by Michigan State Police, is that correct?
Yes.
And also, the president never got or received the report because the actual investigation was completed without any finding of wrongdoing, is that correct?
Objection, assumes facts not in evidence.
I'm asking the question.
Would you repeat the question again?
Okay, let's start with one thing at a time. You never received a copy of the report on Nassar, did you?
No, I did not.
What report? The OCR report?
No, it's the final report regarding the finding of no criminal wrongdoing.
From the prosecutor's office or from where?
There's a report that comes, there's three of them. One's the prosecutor's office, but I'm talking about Michigan State University's
Okay.
report.
You're talking about Michigan State?
Yes.
So, did you receive it?
No, I did not.
And it wasn't given to you, was it?
No, it was not.
And that's because if there's no finding, that's the end of everything, isn't it?
If you know.
I was not in the country when the report was completed.
I'm sorry?
I was not in the country when the report was completed.
But ultimately, you didn't receive a copy of the report anyway, did you?
That's asked and answered.
Do you recall whether or not Christine Moore told you that the investigation had been completed?
I was told verbally that there was it appeared that there was going to be no finding of violation of university policy.
So are you saying you don't know what, or Christine told you, or where it came from? You just heard that?
Christine Moore told me that.
Okay.
as you said before, you didn't even get a copy of the report.
No, I did not.
Objection.
That's
Ask
the
me.
answer.
Then, Michigan State University Police investigated the particular complaint against Nassar. Is that correct?
That's my understanding that they did.
And they did a separate investigation. Is that correct?
Their investigation is separate from the Title IX investigation.
And their investigation ended. And what did they do, if you know?
I don't know.
Do you have any idea whether they referred it to the government prosecutors?
Objection. Ask me answer. She said, I don't know what happened.
Does that fall under your previous answer that you don't know? Or-
I don't know directly. I read in the paper that it had been referred to the prosecutor, but I was not personally informed that I recall that it had been, what the outcome was of that.
But you became aware that it was referred to the government prosecutors. Is that correct?
Objection.
She's
That's
answered.
like, well, it's asked and answered, and it's a lack of personal foundation. We don't get our information from the newspaper. No offense to it.
Sustained.
Do you have any knowledge that the particular complaint was investigated by the government prosecutors at all?
Only on the basis of what I've read.
I'm sorry?
Only on the basis of what I've read.
You were interviewed by the Michigan State Police twice, were you not?
Yes,
And you recall telling them that you do not remember talking specifically with President Simon about the particular case of Nassar.
that's what I told them.
Objection. That would be hearsay. It's not a court statement. Obviously, it's being used for the truth of the matter asserted. And it's not prior inconsistent statement. It's just asking her to actually, this is Mr. Morgan testifying about a previous statement. So we would move to strike her answer.
First of all, Your Honor, it's an admission. Second of all, on top of it,
Admission by whom?
by the witness, that she remembers specifically that she did not talk to President Simon on the particular case. She was asked on direct examination all over the place what she said, what she did with President Simon. I'm not allowed to ask her the same questions that they asked.
Okay, well, yes, Mr. Kluger.
Your Honor, first of all, that's not what she said in those interviews. And secondly is, it's not an admission by a witness. The admissions are admissible against the defendant by the defendant's own admissions. So it's not a court statement trying to be used to prove the truth of whether or not she told President Simon. That's hearsay.
I'm sorry, Your Honor. I'm
Must
reading.
evidence be the state police or something connected with that interview?
I'm reading this right out of her interviews by them, her answers and their questions. And they're objecting to what they asked of her 3 times?
Okay, I will allow it, and then let's move on. You want to repeat the question for her?
You couldn't remember any time you were interviewed, specifically talking to President Simon about Dr. Nassar. Is that correct?
Yes,
And all you were, excuse me, when it comes to the May 19th meeting, you didn't believe the meeting ever took place, and if it did, it was over a telephone. Is that correct?
Objection, that's a town hall question.
Okay, and haven't we covered that?
And it's
over
asked
and
and
over?
answered.
That even earlier in cross-examination, that she does her best recollection, which sounds like it's last recollection most of us would have about after that time period, was that it was by phone. So let's move on.
Now, once the Michigan State University Police were through, and once the investigation by the university was over, and once the government prosecutors were all done, and findings were made ultimately that there was no violation or criminal misconduct by Dr. Nassar. That would be the end of that particular investigation.
Your Honor, that is, first of all, it's a three-part compound question. Second is it assumes facts, non-evidence. And third, there's no specific foundation for this witness to testify about that.
First,
Are you asking just related to her job? Because I don't think she would know anything else.
first of all, yes, related to her job. Second of all, she was the coordinator. She knows when it ends.
Okay, did you have any connection with the issue professionally after that point, as far as responsibility in your work?
When the Title IX investigation was completed, I was out of the country. I did not receive a copy of the report, and there was no additional follow-up, to the best of my knowledge, certainly by myself or by the office, to the best of my knowledge.
In order for the particular situation to be referred to the President Simon, that have to be a finding of wrongdoing, would there not?
Didn't she already said there's no written protocol to report a Title IX investigation to the president. So having to, isn't asking her if she had to do that inconsistent with her previous answer?
No, Your Honor, I'm not asking about the
You're not asking what?
I'm not asking about the investigation at that point. I'm asking, isn't the matter completely closed once there's no finding of responsibility, criminal responsibility, or this Michigan State University violation? Isn't it closed and does not go to the president?
It closed as far as her piece.
Yes.
Again, there's no protocol, written protocol, that would require reporting to the president either a closed because there was no violation or because there was a violation found of Title IX, not criminal. I'm not involved with criminal.
And once there's a closing under Title IX, and there is no finding of wrongdoing, it does not go to the president, does it?
Objection has been answered. You just answered that same question.
Does that question mean the same thing to you as the previous one? Because I thought the previous one was a little broader, including criminal. But
I have to admit, at this point, I'm confused.
I'm sorry.
I'm confused.
I think about.
Well, I'll make it very simple. There's a Title IX investigation. It's found by all the departments it goes to, ultimately, not to be valid or criminally or violation of university policy, and closed. That's the end of it, that particular proceeding, is it not?
Your Honor, I object, first of all, that it is outside this witness's knowledge. She already indicated she doesn't know what happened with the criminal investigation, or what she read in the paper, on that, and what other actions were taken by other agencies out from under her purview. Second is, it assumes the fact, not an evidence, because there is no testimony about what happened with all of those other things in this hearing, because it's not particularly relevant. And
Right,
then,
because we're not talking about criminal
right.
Issues. So
So the only part of that question she can answer is one she's already answered, which is what happened with Title IX after the determination by Christine Moore.
And you
And
don't
she's already
know.
answered that.
Right. Is that correct? You don't know what happened to Title IX. Anything else is really not part of your responsibility in your role with Michigan State.
If I understand the question, our responsibility revolves around Title IX, not the criminal. So, and I've indicated that our protocols, there's no formal protocol that requires a specific outcome of a Title IX case being brought to the attention of the president. If there's a finding, a violation of policy, in this case the sexual harassment or sexual assault, then that would be, it's not our responsibility to determine the consequences. We just determine whether or not there's a violation of policy.
When you say not our responsibility, the president does not get involved in any of that until there's a finding, either of criminal or of the university violation. Is that correct?
Without objection. Again, we're back to what happened in the criminal area. This witness does not have the sufficient foundation to answer those questions because repeatedly she said, I'm not aware of what happened, and I'm not responsible for what happened. So,
The scope of the president's job is not her expertise or what she's here for, so the objection is sustained. Except as it relates to her duties.
Were you told that they subpoenaed and got 500,000 pages of documents and papers and not one of them to and from the president to you or anybody else or from anybody else during 2014, 2015, and most of 2016 had the name Nassar on them to the president or from?
Your Honor, we object. First of all, that's outstanding testimony, but it's not a question. Second is, it's certainly not within this witness's purview, the scope of the documents that we subpoenaed and received from
Sustained.
MSU. So move to strike all of that.
Your Honor, if I can say something in that regard. The fact of the matter is, I'm asking whether they told her that. They're interviewing her, and they're asking questions about whether she communicated, emailed, whether she got anything back, and they already had 500,000 pages of documents, including all her emails, that never mentioned Nassar. I think they have a right to ask her that question. They're asking the questions in the interviews.
Well, I don't think she's the appropriate witness to ask that to, except as to her own email connections with Dr. Simon. She's already answered that.
Now, on any agendas that you prepared for any meetings, was the name Nassar on any of those agendas?
No.
I'm just leafing through based upon the objection, Chairman. Now, you did get interviewed on July 26, 2018 by the Michigan State Police. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you were asked about your email, and you stated that, and look, there was no name Nassar on your email that you sent to the president. Is that correct?
That's correct.
You told the investigators that you did not recall ever talking to President Simon about the issue at all. Is that correct?
Objection, again, asked and answered, and I think we're now reading from the July 26th interview, so that would certainly be an article statement. But it was already asked and answered in this hearing, so.
I'm asking for specific questions about what was stated, where she stated continually She never discussed Nassar with
She never discussed what?
Nassar with the president.
Objection, that's actually not what she said out of court, but certainly not what she said in court.
That is what she said in
does not recall specifically, but again, counsel's reading from an interview that took place outside of this court, and this witness has already answered that question inside this court. So, one, it's hearsay, and second is, it's been asked and answered.
First of all, what she says is not hearsay. It's what she's saying, not what she's heard. That's number one. Number two, the fact that she's been asked it in an interview, they want to avoid it because it's totally contrary to what their position is. They don't want the truth to come out. And I've got a right to ask her what she said in the past. It's her statement, not hearsay. Hearsay's from a third party. And I don't know where they get hearsay from. Except they don't want the answers.
Well, you just want her to say whether she admitted talking with Dr. Simon about Nassar?
That's part of it.
Okay, let's take that part. Did you ever talk with Dr. Simon about Nassar to your memory?
I have said at different points that I don't recall specifically saying his name to Dr. Simon.
Okay, does that clarify?
Yes, and you said that 3 times in interviews, did you not?
I can't tell you how many times, but I know that I've said it more than once.
No, she's saying it right now under oath in courtroom, so we're good with that? Not sure.
And you were interviewed several times, and each time they kept asking you the same questions, did they not?
Objection, relevant?
How's that?
They're trying to force her to say what they want. I got a right to show that they're trying to get her to say something they want. 3 times the same questions.
Well, probably not that unusual in interrogation situations. I don't really think that's relevant to our issue with information getting out to Dr. Simon, so please move ahead.
Do you recall each time telling them in interviews that you did not remember ever talking to Simon about this case?
And again, it's asked and answered. And secondly, despite counsel's protestations to the contrary, an out-of-court statement, even by this witness being offered for the truth of the matter asserted, clearly falls within the definition of hearsay. So we've addressed this issue in court, and she's available, and it's been asked and answered.
Your Honor, out-of-court statements are admissions by the
If asked
party.
and
you're
answered, I'm going over and over and over this.
You didn't have discussions with President Simon regarding OCR investigations, did you?
You're talking about any OCR investigation?
Yes.
I may have given the president updates on the fact that the OCR was continuing to investigate MSU, but that would have been more general in terms of an update on the status, but I don't have any direct recollection of specific discussions, probably just providing status, but again.
Do you recall that you never were advised that during your interviews that you were being interviewed regarding a criminal investigation?
I don't recall being advised that there was a criminal investigation.
Now, there was the OCR letter, which was a Dear Colleague letter, do you recall that?
Yes.
And that went out to all the universities, didn't it?
That's my understanding, yes.
Federal funds were never withheld from the university by OCR's position, were they?
Objection, I'm not clear. We're talking about MSU in this particular case? If not, then it's not relevant about what happened in other universities or even with MSU, period. It's not related to this.
Your Honor, I'm asking,
Sustained. Are you asking, do you want to narrow it to just related to this investigation regarding Dr. Nassar?
that's what I intended. He asked on direct about the fact that they could withhold funds from
Right.
Michigan State. I'm asking the same question.
Okay.
I didn't object.
You
He
get that?
does.
I believe I do. Yeah. I've never been told that federal funds were withheld from Michigan State as a result of the OCR investigation.
Related to Dr. Nassar. Is that right? Or related, following up on the Dear Colleague letter?
I was referring back to the OCR complaints that were initiated, I believe, in 2011 that have been referred to earlier against MSU.
Yes, and that's what you were asked by the Attorney General about that particular OCR document, is that correct?
Yes.
And you were asked by him, or suggested that maybe you get, it could have been penalized, Michigan State. Michigan State was never penalized or threatened with federal funding being withheld or sanctions, was it?
I can only speak to what I know,
Mhm.
which is what I've already said. To the best of my knowledge, no one has told me that MSU that our federal funding or MSU's funding was withheld as a result of the OCR investigation.
And as you stated before, 55 universities that year were, shall we say, visited
Objection.
by OCR, correct?
Okay, asked and answered.
I was just using that as a premise for the next question.
Okay, well, let's go on to the next question.
And now, there are over 250 universities that are visited by OCR. Is that correct?
Objection, lack of foundation and relevance.
Sustained.
Just to refresh your memory, because you weren't sure how many times you were interviewed, do you recall you were interviewed in May 2018 by the MSU Police, by June 2018 by the MSU Police, in July 2018 by Mr. Teeter, Scott Teeter, the Attorney General's office?
John, I just going to object. I think the second one later in this speak, you said MSU police. My understanding the interviews were, the first two were both by MSP, Michigan State Police, not MSU.
Okay. Do you want to accept that friendly correction? Or was it MSU police, do you think?
The first one, MSU, was a different one. That was June of 2017. The three I'm talking about are exactly what I said. MSU Police, and pardon me, not MSU Police, Michigan State Police, my error, on May of 2018, June 2018, and July 2018. recall you were interviewed all those 3 times.
I was interviewed those 3 times.
And as stated before, you were never instructed that it was for criminal investigation. However, on the 3rd interview that you had, were you told twice by Mr. Teeter that you were facing, if you lied, prosecution?
Yes.
Question, Your Honor, that, first of all, that 3rd interview was not with me. It's actually an investigative subpoena that was performed by Bill Ralston, so that states, in fact, not an evidence, and it's, in fact, an accurate one.
Okay.
The transcript's really clear. It says AAG Ralston did that interview.
Meyer,
You want to correct your
Yes.
question then?
when you were interviewed by the Attorney General's office, Mr. Ralston, did he threaten you twice that if you lied, you'd be prosecuted?
He did say if I lied, I could be prosecuted, or something to that effect.
And until then, you had no such threat. Is that correct?
I'm sorry.
In the previous interviews, nobody made such a threat, correct?
No.
Isn't it true that in the period leading up to the OCR investigation, Michigan State University had undertaken hundreds of Title IX investigations, but that only 2 or 3 of those investigations were complained about to OCR?
My recollection at the time, the OCR complaints that we received in, I think it was 11, 12, or thereabouts, involved 3 complaints.
And the response to OCR was handled through Michigan State University's Office of General Counsel, is that correct?
Yes.
And the communications between your office and OCR went to Michigan State University's Office of General Counsel, correct?
Yes.
And you were asked about resolution agreements. Similarly, like MSU, numerous other public universities entered into resolution agreements with OCR, is that correct?
Objection, 1, lack of foundation, 2, relevance. What other universities did somewhere else, somewhere in the world, at any particular time, clearly isn't relevant, and I don't know if this would Mr. know that.
The court believes it's irrelevant asking her the question when he did, because the fact of the matter is, if it's irrelevant that other ones and numerous other ones, and it was a common, ordinary thing, why ask her like that was a specific thing that meant something when it doesn't? They almost all were in the same boat.
All complaints filed? I mean, we already know that the letter was sent.
No, resolution agreements were common, and numerous of the universities all signed them.
And how does this help me in getting the issue of communication with Dr. Simon?
Well, what it is counsel brought it up. That's the only reason why I'm responding. He asked questions, all these questions, and I'm responding to what he asked. He's trying to infer it meant something, that they were terrible people, when all the universities were involved doing the same thing. Resolution agreements. Why did he bring it up if he didn't think it was important to try and make the finder think that that meant something, when it doesn't? It's common. It was ordinary.
Well, it doesn't mean it's meaningless.
Well, and Your Honor, this witness specifically testified that the reason why she contacted President Simon was because their office was in, and I quote, the heightened state of alert, close quote, and she confirmed that in her testimony, because of the OCR investigation.
Okay.
That's why it was relevant, not whatever everybody else did somewhere in time, somewhere across the country, because her office was on a heightened state of alert, and that's what prompted the immediate contact with President Simon.
Okay.
With no name.
With no name.
with no name, just,
Right. To Dr.
that's it.
Beck. Um, Did the way you handled the Simon, or the Nassar case, have anything to do with what was going on in other universities? Or was it just related to OCR's concerns about Michigan State?
It goes back to the fact that we were under investigation by OCR, and it was to make the president aware that we have a matter involving a doctor.
Okay, so it was related to Michigan State.
Yes.
Please move on.
The resolution agreement between Michigan State and OCR was September 2015, a year and a half after the Thomas Shaw complaint was filed and after it was closed. Is that true?
I don't know when you say when it was closed, was it the
The
OCR?
Nassar matter.
Could you ask the question again, please?
The OCR resolution agreement was dated September 2015, a year and a half after the complaint was filed in May of 2014 by Ms. Thomas Shaw.
Yes.
Isn't it also true that the Dear Colleague letter was sent to every public university in the country?
Objection, asked and answered.
I've heard that several times.
Isn't it also true the Dear Colleague letter set forth general recommendations for all public universities and not specifically for MSU?
Correct.
Isn't it also true that the Dear Colleague letter that Michigan State received in 2011 had nothing to do with Larry Nassar?
Correct.
And the references that you made to OCR in your agendas had nothing to do with Larry Nassar, because OCR never investigated Larry Nassar in 2014. Isn't that correct?
That would be the case, yes.
And to the best of your knowledge, President Simon was not involved in any aspect of the 2014 investigation of Larry Nassar. Is that
Objection,
correct?
Foundation.
I asked to the best of her knowledge. She was coordinator for Title IX.
Overruled.
You want me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
And to the best of your knowledge, President Simon was not involved in any aspect of the 2014 investigation of Larry Nassar.
I did not have any I did not ask Dr. Simon to be involved in any way. So to the extent of my involvement, I would not have asked Dr., at least I have no recollection, nor do I believe I asked Dr. Simon to be involved in that case.
No. You asked Ms. Moore to send you details regarding Ms. Thomas Shaw's complaint while you were at the track meet. That was so you could inform Dean Scrample of the allegations. Is that correct?
That's what I stated was my recollection of the reasons for having her provide me with information.
And that's because Dean Strample was a unit administrator, is that correct?
Yes.
You don't have any recollection providing Ms. Simon with the details of Ms. Tomashaw's complaint that was set forth in the email Christine Moore sent to you on Friday, May 16th. Is that correct?
That's correct.
In 2013 and 2014, Title IX investigations overseen by your office were not done in a shoddy, haphazard manner, were they?
I don't believe that they were.
Did you believe the investigations were handled efficiently and thoroughly by your staff?
I believe that they were.
And you didn't yourself remember Nassar's name until reminded of his name in your interview with the state police in 2018, isn't that correct?
No, that's not correct.
You don't recall that they reminded you of the name, the first interview?
Objection, that's been answered. She just said no.
Okay. She's answered, I guess. Move on, please.
Certainly not. And you have stated and testified that you have no recollection of discussing the name Larry Nassar with Ms. Simon
Objection.
on May 19th.
Objection, that's been answered.
Asked and answered, yes, sustained.
You have no recollection of discussing the notes on the May 14, 2014 folder with Ms. Simon on May 19th. Is that correct?
I've said that I don't recall having discussed the folder with Dr. Simon.
And in fact, you don't recall discussing the Nassar matter at all with Ms. Simon on May 19th. Is that correct?
Objection, asked and answered.
Do you recall in your interviews by the Michigan State Police and by the Attorney General's office, not Michigan State Police, yes, I'm sorry, Michigan State Police and the Attorney General's office, that you didn't even recall having a meeting on May 19th?
That's correct.
And also stating that you did not have detailed conversations about the case with President Simon.
Objection, Your Honor, whether you read the same question from the transcript about the conversation with Ms. Simon, or you ask it 6 times now in this hearing, it's still been asked and answered. That the first one is improper because it deals with the statements made out of court. The other 6, I think we probably hit that limit where it's been asked and
Asked
answered.
and answered, sustained.
As you sit here today, you still don't recall mentioning Nassar's name to President Simon.
Your Honor,
Asked and
seriously.
answered.
Thank you.
And as far as you're aware, President Simon did not attempt to impede, interfere, or cover up your office's investigation of Larry Nassar or the complaint made by Ms. Tomashaw. Is that correct?
That's correct.
In fact, it was your office that informed the police about Ms. Tomashaw's complaint and asked them to conduct a criminal investigation. Is that correct?
The protocols and the policy of the university required that there be a report of allegations of sexual assault to the MSU Police Department, so that would have been done. So that was done.
And the Michigan State University Police recommended criminal charges to the prosecutor's office, is that correct?
Objection, foundation. Not sure how this witness could know. And secondly, it's not relevant.
Sustained.
Your Honor, for the record, it is relevant. It was sent to every different department that,
Well, I don't think it's a proper question for her.
you testified you believe that you had both folders when you had your discussions with President Simon on May 19, 2014. But we know now that's obviously not correct, because you later testified you believe the second folder was created in 2018. So that folder could not have been used during that discussion, correct?
I don't believe I said that I had both folders. I believe that there was a folder that had an agenda in it that was dated May 14, 20, can't remember the year now, but the second folder I explained or attempted to explain how that folder came to be.
That's the May 14th?
There was a May 14 folder that had a May 19 agenda in it. And I attempted to explain that there was another folder that was dated May 19, but it was in handwriting. And I tried to explain how that folder came to be.
Actually, the May 14 folder had an agenda inside it, but it was blank with no handwriting, correct?
Correct.
So you wouldn't have that folder or agenda with you when you discussed anything with Ms. Simon on May 19th, because there's no writing or anything on the agenda, is that correct?
You're talking about handwriting as opposed to the typewritten and
Yes, yes, Your Honor, handwriting, in a meeting where they took all the notes.
There, I'm just to form the question. There are actually two separate exhibits, the quote seen those. We could show those to the witness. But there is the blank 19 agenda, May 19th. But then there's the completed May 19th agenda as well. So they indicate that there was only one agenda without handwriting on it. It's not contradicted by the evidence that's already been submitted.
that it's the same agenda to supplement it. Is that your point?
Yes, Your Honor.
And is that what you're trying to get at?
Yeah, the May 14th agenda has no handwriting at all on it.
The
No, that's
May
not correct.
19th
The May 19th.
agenda in the May 14th file. Is that what you're saying? Have no
Yes.
handwriting.
Oh, that's what I'm getting at. I'm talking about in the May 14th. I'm sorry.
That I think we've established before.
Well, what I'm getting at, if there was no handwriting on it, it makes sense that that meeting, that folder, never was at a meeting and never took place.
On
That
May
particular,
14th or May 19th?
on any date, but specifically May 19th, that folder was not brought to a meeting because there is absolutely no handwriting notes on the agenda. It's blank.
But isn't there another one with writing on it?
That's a different one. I'm talking about the May 14th folder.
Didn't you say you're talking about May 19th actually now?
No, I'm talking about the agenda in the May 14th folder. The May 14th folder could not have been at any meeting on May 19th or any meeting because there's absolutely no writing and the agenda is totally blank for any writing.
Is that true?
Your Honor, I've tried to explain why there were two agendas. Typically, when I would,
Why don't you explain, try to answer fully?
usually when I met with President Simon, I would have two agendas, one that I would give to her and one that I would keep for me. There were two meetings, and this came out earlier, that were on my calendar. One that is May 14 and another that was May 19. And inside the 214 folder, there was an agenda with no handwriting on it. So my assumption is that the one that I had, the one that I keep for me, there was a conversation. I have said I don't remember if that conversation was in person or by phone, but there must have been a conversation because there are handwritten notes on one of those agendas. Why I would not have given her her agenda, I believe, is because we may not have met in person, because it's consistent with what's written at the top of that agenda, which says phone in, phone call. So what I've tried to help myself even understand is why there was a folder with an agenda in it that had no handwriting on it versus one that did. And it means to me that there was a conversation. I believe it took place on May the 19th because there's my handwriting on that agenda. And apparently, the information that was provided earlier by the AG is that one of the items on the agenda was the survey, the sexual assault survey, which was a lot of work that was being done in response to Senator McCaskill's request for universities to respond to a survey, which helps to also explain why some of the background material related to the McCaskill survey was in the 214 file. And it doesn't appear that I made or had my assistant make a separate file to put the 519 agenda in there, and I may have just had both of them in the 214 file because of the possibility of talking more about the McCaskill matter along with the other items that were on that 519 agenda.
In the 514.
In the 514, why the 519 agenda was in the 514 file.
Okay, does that explain it adequately, do you think, Mr. Maldonado?
It's a little bit different than the original testimony, but I guess it explains to a degree. And Nassar's name wasn't on any one of those particular agendas, correct?
No, it was not.
And as you testified before, where you wrote down two names, that could have been in 2018.
Objection, that's not what she said. She said she didn't believe she wrote that in 2018. In fact, her testimony was she wrote it to prompt her to bring it up to Ms. Nassar.
You know, it's not true. And he's testifying all the time. That's not what she said to prompt her to bring it up with Simon.
Well, I'll let her say whether that's what she said or not. But I don't want to review all the prior testimony to go through it again.
you can't say with certainty you had the folder of 514, the McCaskill, with you when you had your discussion with President Simon on May 19th, can you?
No, I cannot.
In the email you received from Christine Moore on May 16, 2014, detailing the allegations by Ms. Tomashaw against Nassar was not in your folder, is that correct?
That's correct.
And again, you can't recall when you wrote Nassar, SA, or Estelle, MCG, on your folder, is that correct?
Correct.
And on your May 19, 2014 agenda with your written notes, you have 7 or 8 specific names handwritten on that, do you not?
I believe it was 7 items on the agenda.
And Larry Nassar's name wasn't any one of the handwritten names you wrote on your agenda, is that correct?
No, his name was not on there.
And you made no notes of any discussion you had with Ms. Simon concerning Nassar, is that correct?
I'm sorry, I was,
You made no notes of any discussion, having any discussion with Ms. Simon concerning Nassar, is that correct?
no, I don't have any notes.
And you didn't make any notes whatsoever about discussion with Ms. Simon concerning Estelle McGroarty, is that correct?
No, I did not.
Are there any other questions?
We're looking for exhibits A, B, and C.
I was going to take a break at 10:30, but this is going to delay things. I'll take the break now. You need a break now, Mr. Morgan?
Yes, please.
About 12 minutes.
Okay, thank you, Ellen.